Ever since man began to engage in battle, there have been those who collect the debris of war to decorate in various ways and either keep or sell as a memento. Some of these pieces are highly valued for the quality of workmanship or their nostalgic value. The name trench art has been given to this concept, although, in fact, most of these objects weren't created in the trenches. I'm Jenny Robinson, and today on Pace TV, we'll find out more about these enigmatic objects from our guest, John Ford, who is a photographer and trench art fan who has been collecting trench art for over 35 years. John, welcome to Pace TV.
Thank you, Jenny. Appreciate it.
And we are delighted to have you here today to tell us about a very unusual hobby that you have. We have trench art here, quite a few examples, and I want you to tell us your definition of trench art before we begin.
All right. The simple basic definition would be something made from the debris of battle. Battle happens, you've got buildings knocked down, you've got shells lying around, crashed airplanes or whatever. Somebody grabs up these pieces a little later on and makes something out of them.
So not necessarily from the trenches, but a few people just gathered things in the trenches. Is that the idea?
Well, in World War I, they spent a lot of time in the trenches, and that's kind of the vision of World War I is the trench warfare thing. So they kind of got that name. Yes, there are some pieces made there, but it's not something you would be spending time there making something like trench art. You need to be like in a machine shop further back or someplace where you have access to tools and whatever to make a really beautiful piece.
Now, does it have to be artillery or what materials?
No, it could be wood. World War I, they had wood propellers. A plane would crash. The tip of it would survive usually. They make a picture frame out of that. It could be paper or marble or not marble so much as clay or stone and bones. Animal bones would be great. Surface
What would they do with the animal bones?
Well, you would carve them. Once you let them dry out and they get all bleached white, you carve them and they make beautiful vases. 4 legs of a cow makes a great vase.
Oh. Okay, and you don't have any of those today, though?
No,
right?
I do not have any
shucks.
of those.
So what countries would be involved?
Any country that a war is going on. We're speaking mostly about World War I and World War II. Those were the European countries. We got France, Germany, Austria, Belgium, Holland would be making them. POWs in England made them, or people convalescing in hospitals in England would make them.
Okay, I want to get more information about that. You had said prisoners of war. Why would they make them? Because they had a lot of time on their hands.
They had plenty of time on their hands. They did have access to some materials. In those days, the governments weren't really taking care of their prisoners, their soldiers that were prisoners very well. Even as a POW or especially as the guy on the front lines, they were frequently undersupplied. So these guys would make something and sell it for food or clothing or a hot bath or a shave or anything else that might come to mind.
Trade it.
Yes, trade.
Oh, okay. And what other types of people would make trench art?
Civilians would make it. We said POWs, the convalescents, anybody who's in a hospital would be great therapy to they did a lot of knitting stuff. People with hand injuries and stuff, they would do a lot of knitting or sewing work was a common thing. In World War II, a lot of internees did it. It was the civilians that are held by another country. They're not prisoners, but they can't go anywhere. They call them internees.
Internees?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
They're interned in the country.
Oh, I see. Right. Now, what about vets?
Vets?
Veterans? Anybody that...
No, it has to be actually directed to the battle itself or the war direct at that time or its consequences. So if somebody's making a piece of trench art well after a battle, it gets a little in the gray area of what is really trench art.
So we have value to these pieces.
Oh, absolutely.
So some of these pieces, now you have been collecting but not necessarily selling, you said, but you have purchased all these, as probably you assume, online?
Online and in person. Antique stores have sometimes, it's the thrill of the hunt kind of thing. You go into an antique store and you ask them and they frequently don't know what you're talking about. They want to sell you tramp art instead of trench art. And but when you do find a piece, it's really kind of exciting because you've been in 10 or 15 or 25 places and wow, here's a piece,
Yeah. So how would you be able to tell the value of something?
Well, the value is what you're willing to pay for it. None of these pieces, very few pieces have a real intrinsic value. Some pieces that are specific to a battle or an experience have more value than just a vase or something that was made. I saw a piece that went on eBay. It was sold for about $2,500. It was related to the sinking of the Bismarck. So it had, historical context, and it was a very well-made piece, and more than one person really wanted to have it.
Right, and so it's the demand supply thing.
Exactly.
So this is one of a kind items, and you have usually it's one of a kind, or
usually it's one of a kind, but some people may. I have a little amphibious half-track ashtray or amphibious car ashtray. I've seen 4 or 5 of them on eBay.
Ah. Now also, before we get any further, I think we ought to show an example of trench art so that our viewers can get an idea of what trench art is before we continue. So let's use this as an example. This is a very darling airplane.
Yes.
It has a working propeller, working wheels, and it's obviously a bullet in the middle.
Right. The fuselage is a bullet. The wings are scrap brass, probably from larger artillery shells cut out. And this has a very nice little scalloped edge, which an airplane that the Germans flew called a Taube, which is dove in English, had this design. And they're frequently, they're very frequent. They make this particular model of airplane. I have 4 or 5 of them.
Oh, and they look
they
like
look
this?
Similar.
Oh.
Yes, they're all different, but they're very similar. Some have the wires across the top and the bottom. Sometimes the wheels are made with coat buttons or hat badges or something like that. Whatever scrap you can find to make something. This is round. That can be a wheel. Here's a piece of. I have one little airplane. This guy down here in the front, and the cylinder heads are made from cut-off screws. So you just whatever your creativity is that you can. You can do something interesting with.
And make it unique.
And make it your own.
We were just talking about making more than one of something.
Right.
I think you showed me this before.
Right.
And this was made for perhaps an entire...
Well, this company is the second field company, IBAK, which I can't remember the name of.
Okay.
This is Weihnachten 1914. Weihnachten is Merry Christmas in German. So it's my guess would be that they made enough of these for the officers, maybe all the men. I don't really know.
To hold matches.
There's a matchbox cover. It's a very common piece. There's lots and lots of these things. It's just a piece of aluminum or brass or copper, and it's folded twice, and they put some design on it or they add something to it.
So this would have been made by the government?
No, this has been made by the guys in the company.
In the company,
yeah,
out of the artillery?
Out of scrap materials that they would find.
And that would be allowed?
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely.
But generally, it was not allowed, right?
Well, yeah, the government, it's all government property, and the government, we all know, doesn't like to let go of anything. And artillery shells during a war are very valuable and as a resource. So they would fire the shell, toss it away, and somebody would collect it and bring it back, and they'd reload it and fire it again, a week later, a month later, whatever their turnaround time was. So if you were taking artillery shells out of service, you're, working for the enemy.
Yeah.
Even though it's 1 shell here, 2 shells there. And in cases like the Battle of Somme, they fired 4 million rounds. So there's plenty of shells lying about. There's stacks, big as houses.
So they looked the other way. They did.
But very few people signed their work or were attributed to somebody specifically.
Very few?
Very few.
So nobody signed their pieces?
Very few, yeah. I have no idea who made these pieces I've collected.
Wow.
Nobody did.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm very surprised because you'd think you'd want to get credit for doing all this work.
Right. Well, yeah, you do, but you also don't want to get the government mad at you, and they might send you to the front.
Ah, right. Okay, so what type of person might make this? Like, why would you make a piece?
Okay, well, soldiers made it, civilians made it. Anybody who was in a war area or a rear area, a garrison town might make something like this.
For themselves?
Sometimes for themselves, sometimes for a little extra money, sometimes to trade and barter for something. Again, the governments in those days didn't really understand supplying their troops with all the latest, greatest stuff.
Right.
And so, some guy's out there and then the food isn't coming up as it should or not enough of it, and he makes a piece of something and a guy comes along and says, oh, that's cool, I'll buy it.
Right.
Or they try to sell it to somebody and they make a little money so they can have tobacco or maybe a little whiskey or something like that, whatever they would like to have, little creature comforts of.
Right. Now, what about other reasons like sentimental value?
Sentimental value is actually, the sentimental value is kind of at the receiver's end. somebody might make something or buy something and send it to their loved one back home, and then they would receive it, and that's like their contact with their soldier, a relative who's fighting at the front.
Right. So it might say mom on it.
Might say mom. It might say, I have a couple of shells. I didn't bring them today. They have, one of them has a Mahan on it, and the other one has, I don't know, Clotide or something. It's your French names are probably the kids. The guy made them and sent them to his kids.
Right. Right.
So,
what about a friend that died?
Friend that died, yeah, that would obviously be a tangible link to somebody that is missing or has died in the war.
Right.
Somebody might get a mom might receive a piece of trench art, and then 3-4 months later their son is killed. That's their last direct connection with their loved one.
Right.
Husband, brother, father, uncle, nephew, whatever.
Yeah, yeah. And how about tourists? Would it be?
Well, there was a lot of tourism after the war. That happened, 1919. It became very fashionable to go to the battle sites, Passchendaele, Somme, Vimy Ridge, places like that. You've got to look at, this is where they fought. This is where they did their thing, and all too frequently died. The Battle of Passchendaele, they lost 60,000 British soldiers in the first day. That's a lot of people. A lot, 60,000 dead in one day. It's
a lot of friends. A lot of friends.
A lot of people died in that war, and for
How many collectors are there out there of this type of stuff?
That's a good question. I have no idea how many collectors there are per se. I bid a lot on eBay. I see a lot of pieces. Every day there's somewhere between 900 to 1,200 pieces of trench art on eBay every day for sale. And that's just on eBay, let alone Craigslist and any of the other websites that sell this stuff. And a lot of the antique stores sell it that don't list it on eBay. So I would say tens of thousands of people are collecting this.
Wow. Tens of thousands, and we had never even heard of it.
Yeah.
And so you have a Flickr website, and how many hits do you get on your website? Do you?
Well, I besides I have trench art up there, but I have my photography up there also. I average, 200, 300, 400 hits a day.
Wow.
People are looking at my work, some of my photography and my trench art and all that. So.
Well, I want to make sure our viewers get to see that. So what's your Flickr address?
Okay, my Flickr address is airplaneguy38. It's all one word, and it's easiest and most direct to Google airplaneguy38. And up there will be my photography of airplanes and everything else that I've done. And also there's a specific section that just has trench art.
And you have to go to sets, right? Or collections?
Yeah, you go into sets.
Okay.
Once you get to my name, click on the top one after you Google it, and then you go in there and you click on sets, and it'll be on the second page.
And all the photographs come up of all these beautiful pieces and more.
Exactly.
Okay, great. And you also just told me you have a website.
I do. I've just recently got trenchart.net, and that'll be up and running in the next week or so.
Great. Let's take a look at some of the examples that you brought, because I think that's going to be really fun. Besides this airplane, you have two other airplanes.
Right, exactly.
And this one you talked about earlier, and it is pretty darn special. It's very small for our camera to pick up, but where did this come from?
Well, I have no idea. I bought this about 8 years ago, and it's just a cute little piece. It's, like I said earlier, it has cut-off screw heads for cylinders. The whole thing turns, not just the prop, which is what a lot of the engines did in those days. The whole entire engine turned, not just the propeller. And it has bullet heads for wheels that still run, and scrap piece of brass for the wings and the tailplane.
And absolutely nothing written on it.
Nothing written on it at all. Little cutout.
Was it American?
Oh no, it'd be European.
European.
It's probably a German design. I don't remember any other planes besides the Germans that had a post in the middle and wires going out to support the wings.
Now, are most of your pieces from Germany?
I have no real knowledge exactly where a lot of these pieces came from. They're European. I've picked up pieces though from Australia and South America and Central Europe and stuff like that. But where they originally were made, who made them, it's all lost.
So the battles that you could include would go back how far?
Boer War. I have a piece. That's the oldest piece that I have is from the Boer War.
Wow. And that was what date?
That was late, let's see, 1898 to 1901 or so, something right in there.
What is your piece? What is that
That
piece?
piece is, where'd it go? There it is. It's the loving cup.
This is beautiful.
Yeah, a couple little handles or bullets.
It weighs a lot.
And the lid comes off, and you've got, it was described to me as a loving cup. I'm not sure exactly what a loving cup is, but here it is.
A loving cup with little bullets coming out the
yeah,
top.
exactly. And these little pieces right here are buttons that probably came off of somebody's great coat or trench coat.
Oh.
And they applied them, and the bullets here on the side, the little bullet heads for the support the handles out there.
And that's from 1890 or so.
Yeah, late 1890s, early 1900.
Oh, that's pretty special.
Yeah, that's my oldest piece that represents a specific time frame.
Right. Okay. And do you have any American pieces?
Yeah. Let's see, American pieces. Boy, I tell you. I don't.
Okay. Do you have on your website any American pieces?
Again, it's hard. Americans didn't show up in the war until 1917.
That's interesting.
So they were there for the last year and a half of the war. And I do have American pieces, but mostly from World War II.
Okay, so most of these are European.
Yes, exactly.
And do you have, when you order them, do they come from Europe?
Sometimes they come from Europe. I get a lot of stuff from England, France. I've gotten some pieces from Belgium. Again, this airplane's got the Iron Cross on it for the wings, and it could have been made by a British guy. It could have been made by a German guy. I mean, just as who knows?
Right.
More than likely, I'm guessing it would be made by a German guy, but how I got it, how it got to whoever I bought it from,
right,
is lost to history. Everybody from World War I is gone. There's nobody directly involved in the war left.
Right. Okay, now what about this little submarine?
The little submarine, yeah, that's one of my favorite pieces.
It's very cute.
A couple of bullets soldered together back to back, and scrap pieces picked up from around the battlefields, who knows where, like off a machine shop floor or something like that.
Wow.
And put it together, made a little conning tower, a little work here and a little work there.
A lot of detail.
The little propeller works.
Oh my goodness.
It's really kind of a neat little piece. It's also my single most expensive piece.
Is it?
Yes.
Can you tell us how much it would cost?
Well, that's what I paid for it was $600. Apparently somebody else wanted it almost as bad as I did.
Wow.
I was feeling wealthy at the time and foolish, so there you go.
So this is valuable stuff.
Yeah. A number of the pieces I've seen go for several $1,000s, $3,000, $4,000 is the most expensive pieces I've seen. Again, they're specific to an event that was famous.
Right. Oh, I see.
Or infamous, like the sinking of the Bismarck, that kind of thing.
Right. Now, head stamp.
Head stamps, yes.
Tell us about head stamps.
Head stamps are on the bottom of the shell.
Okay.
And it's one of the ways you can identify it. Here it says 75 DEC, and there's some numbers down here which relate to the date. And other markings which I don't grasp them completely. But basically 75, that's a 75 millimeter shell. This was made in the main Paris armory.
The Paris, France?
Yeah, Paris, France, their armory. So somebody grabbed this, cut it off. This probably would have been about another 6 or 8 inches taller. They cut it off and they put all this beautiful artwork in it, little bows with a little connecting ribbon all the way around.
Now, is it etched, or how would they do it?
I don't know how they made these.
It's just
there's
amazing.
a number of ways of doing these things, and this was made not in the trenches. This would have been made in some machine shop or after the war. And it was definitely a souvenir because there's a little, I believe it's called a cartouche there with some letters, ARS.
ARS.
So that was either made for ARS, who's the guy that had it made, or he gave it to like his mother or wife or something like that.
It's so heavy.
Yeah, well, it's solid brass.
Wow.
Beautiful. And the lid is just stunning. Little flower and the same kind of work all over it. I just love these pieces. They're
beautiful.
So that's what a head stamp is. It identifies the shell size and type.
And you have quite a few over here that are little, the same size.
Yeah, these are all the same size shell. It's called a 3785. It's 37 millimeter. The 85 stands for when the gun was made. It's a French gun, and these were all made in Paris. And they're all different styles. This has got a pie crust top on it.
You'd never guessed that was a artillery shell.
Yeah, that's got a little pie crust top, and this, I don't know what you call this style of top, but it's completely different. And then here's one, a little creamer. And it's a beautiful little hand. This is a more amateurish piece of work. This might
Really?
have been done by somebody for himself,
Huh.
because it doesn't have the quality of workmanship. This
But it's-
might actually have been made in the part of it, at least in the trenches.
But it's beautiful from its simplicity as
Yes,
well.
very simple.
Now, this one is real shiny, but the
Yes.
others are not. Do you shine them up?
I do not shine them up. I love the original patina. It's very disappointing when someone takes these beautifully, patinaed shells and polishes them. It just takes away the value immense. This is just beautiful, and it'll never be any different. This has got a coating on it, so it'll stay that way.
Right.
But these will all tarnish up. They'll all get darker over time.
And I would imagine it wears away if you.
It does. As you can see,
clean
that's not all that clear. This particular piece is a bell. Got a nice little sound to it. That says bones on it, but it's so thin and pale that you can barely read it. There's a hospital in England where somebody probably made this while they were recuperating.
Whoa.
So.
Okay, now we have some really big things, really
Yeah.
heavy things over here. I can
Yeah.
move some of these
Yeah.
back.
Okay.
Tell us about this big
Well, this
guy.
shell here I picked up probably about 4 or 5 years ago, and it's absolutely gorgeous. And I'm saying it's Egyptian. I don't speak any Arabic, so I can't read the writing on what it says here. But you've got some writing here, and a beautiful design around the side of that, as around the writing there. And again, you just rotate it, and you get another. Somebody's put in a design here. And there's no writing on this particular one, but on here you've got another one with writing. I have no clue what it says.
Someone could read that.
Somebody can read that. And again, so it's a beautiful piece. In the top it says it says Damascus, 1918 on the top. So a nice little,
So that is very unusual piece.
Yeah,
Probably one of a kind.
And this was probably a tobacco humidor. The lid comes off. It's a very tight fit. You can put some tobacco in there, and it would stay, I'm assuming, reasonably fresh. I'm not sure if the brass taste would come into the tobacco or not, but
now you say that it couldn't be for tea, or
it could be for tea, but they're frequently tobacco, and tea would be fine. I can't imagine lugging this thing around. It weighs about 5 pounds, 6 pounds.
Is that all? It feels like it's more.
I've never weighed it, so that's a good
heavy.
question.
Well, that's a beauty.
Let's see what this says on the head stamp on this one. And it says 10 centimeters. This is a German shell. It's got some markings on it I can't understand, and then it says 1917 on it. So this shell was made in 1917.
Wow.
And obviously they fired it sometime between 17 and 18, and somebody put all this artwork into it.
And it probably did a lot of damage.
I would think it would have done a lot of damage. That's a big, big shell.
Yes. Okay, now, speaking of damage,
Yes.
this is very interesting.
Yes, that's a piece of shrapnel been carved into a letter opener. This piece here is a part of the drive band, which would sit on the bullet part of the shell right here, make a tighter fit as it goes down the barrel. So you pull that off, and you can use the little piece of that for decoration. A couple of bullets here for the hilt. This is extremely sharp. It really it hurts to use this thing. And I'm assuming at one point that this was all jagged, the whole thing, and it's been carved into a piece of, to a letter opener. It could be that this was just attached through here. I haven't been able to take it apart to find out, but it works great as a letter opener as long as you're holding it from the side.
Yeah.
And you because if you grip it like you would want to, it's very sharp and very painful. So think about that traveling near the speed of sound, and is like molten steel.
And it would have been originally that size
Yeah,
bullet.
well, no, it would have been bigger than this one. It might have been like off of that shell.
Okay.
But this is what it would have started out in shape like.
Oh my goodness, amazing.
So,
All right, let's put this over back. We only have a
Okay.
few minutes left.
all right.
I want to show these beautiful pieces in the back.
Okay.
Can you
Yeah.
reach that?
Sure. All right.
Now,
Well,
this is a different type of metal.
no, this is the same kind of metal. It's just been chromed or painted, or somebody's done something with it
Okay.
to keep it from being, the brass color.
Right, and they put hinges on it.
Put a hinge on it, and this is a drive band for the handle.
Oh my goodness,
So
very
yeah.
interesting. And
Very nice
again,
little,
very heavy. Oh, it even has a little strainer in it.
Yeah, it's
Very nice.
very nice little piece. Yes, well, that you wouldn't want your tea leaves to come through.
Now, what's the? Let's bring up that lantern thing.
Okay.
What's the biggest thing that you own?
The biggest piece I have is a shell that's 250 millimeters. It's about this big around, about this tall.
Wow.
There's a match set. They're intricately carved all the way around. The sets, the design work is almost identical. There's just a little bit of difference in one shelf from the other.
Amazing.
They're beautiful pieces.
Must be heavy.
Yes.
I want to talk about these books that you
Okay.
brought, because
All right.
you obviously have a nice collection of books. I didn't even know there was such a thing as a book on trench art.
Right.
What's your choice of a really good one? This is
they're all so far they're really great. This book here by Jane Kimball, it's called Trench Art: An Illustrated History. She wrote it's a fabulous coffee table book. It's lots of beautiful illustrations in there, and it gives you a very good understanding of trench art. This one here, Nicole Durand,
in French.
Is French, and I hope I'm not mispronouncing his name too badly. I can't read it because I don't speak French, but I have like half a dozen books. He and a guy named Patrice Warren wrote some very excellent books on trench art.
Okay.
Although I can't be too specific because I don't speak the language.
Yeah, but this is amazing that you
Yeah.
can find out more about the pieces that you have, even
Right.
though they're one of a kind. You can
Right.
you can learn more.
Yeah,
We have only got a few seconds left, so
Yeah.
this one.
This is a book by Nicholas J. Saunders. He is probably the single most expert. He's very knowledgeable. He's written a half a dozen books or so, and I have all of them, and they're fascinating. He goes into the anthropology of it, and the history of it, and the whole everything. It's just fascinating.
Great. So people can find out more about this sort of thing on the web. But
Right.
again, I want to give your website.
Okay, it's trenchart.net, and it is also my Flickr site, which is Airplane Guy 38.
Airplane Guy 38. All
Right.
right, John, this has been really fascinating. I've really
right.
enjoyed looking at all your stuff, and I wish we could finish showing all of it. We have more of it there.
Yeah.
So I hope our guests, our listeners, will want to find out more about this.
Yeah,
And thank you so much
all
for
right.
coming today.
Well, thank you very much, Jenny. I appreciate it.
Johnny, get your gun, get your gun, get your gun.